What hardware is coming out in the next few months, and should you wait for it for Star Citizen? That is what this video is all about. We're going to go through some of the leaks for all the different companies and see what's on the horizon and what might be interesting, and just give you a bit of an overview basically of what to expect from AMD, Intel and Nvidia in the next few months. Let's get into it. Let's start off with Intel, because I think this is probably the most boring stuff. We'll save the juicy stuff for last. First of all, we've got CPUs. And actually we do have GPUs, but we'll come on to that in a minute. CPUs, we've got currently, Intel have got the 12th gen Alder Lake CPUs out, and they are very good for Star Citizen, only beaten by the 5800X3D. But they will be releasing the 13th gen. Here is an early slide that seems to have leaked out, and what that seems to suggest is that we've got an increased processor core count, although potentially that's just more E-cores on some of the chips, which isn't very exciting. And actually, when I tested, we found that E-cores, you probably want to turn them off for Star Citizen, especially on Windows 10. So that's there. You've also, more interestingly, got increased L2 and L3 cache. So the reason the 5800X3D from AMD did so well is because it has a massive pool of cache that the whole CPU can use. It's kind of unified across everything. Whether Intel have had enough time to respond to that and change the architecture to do that, I don't know. I wonder if actually it's just got a little bit more L2 and L3 cache per CPU, per core, and whether that will actually make much difference, we'll have to see. Again, on this slide, we see a bump of DDR5 speed. Again, when we tested this, we found that DDR5 is faster, and I actually had some 5600 megahertz stuff. It is faster than DDR4, 3600 at least that I had. This hopefully will mean that they'll be able to push DDR5 modules further, and so we'll see higher speeds and more performance, because there's undoubtedly going to be speed to be found in DDR5, but for now we're wanting to see the latency come down and the speeds go up as much. So we'll see what that does. But overall, on the CPU side, I will be interested to see. I will buy one of these. I'll test this against the current 12700KFs that I've got, and also the 5800X3D, and we'll see how they match up. But normally CPUs, you'd expect maybe a 10% improvement in generations like this with Intel. That won't be enough to beat the 5800X3D in Star Citizen. So we will see. We'll do the testing, but I am not holding out massive hope that this will be incredible. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. The thing to say is that maybe if you've got an Alder Lake system already and the motherboard that's compatible with these, because they've got the 2 generations of compatibility that Intel do, so Alder Lake and Raptor Lake 12th and 13th gen will work on the same motherboards. So if you've already got an Alder Lake system, then maybe one of these will be worth a nice little, maybe 10-15% boost in performance. We'll see. Again, we'll test it. But I don't think I would necessarily recommend going out and buying one of these, because when we come to AMD in a minute, you're going to see that they potentially got a bit of a longer term option on their side. So this might be coming out around October time is the rumour. Let's just cover that as well. Roughly, we'll see. But then we've also got GPUs from Intel starting to come out. Now these have been in development, it feels like, for ages, and so maybe you've seen these, but maybe you haven't. But yes, Intel are joining the market for GPUs, and hopefully will eventually provide some actual competition for the other 2 companies. I don't think necessarily that's going to be the case with these first ones. This one here that somebody's managed to get in the US, they're only selling in China at the moment, but this one is around a Nvidia 1650 performance-wise, or an AMD 6400. So it's nothing mind-blowing, and there will be higher models, but it's probably going to take a while for Intel to kind of really challenge at the top end. But who knows? We'll see. That's Intel. Let's get into AMD. AMD. First of all, let's talk AM4 CPUs, because a while back there was some kind of weird communication from AMD saying they're not quite done with AM4, the current platform that they've got. It does seem as though they may be about to release a 5600X3D, so basically a V-cache version of the 5600. So that is surprising to me. I didn't expect that to be the case, but that could be a really, really good chip. So similar to the 5800X3D, a 5600 with loads more L3 cache, which what we found with the 5800X3D is that basically makes a massive difference to performance in Star Citizen. So that is a good start. The more exciting news, I think, is the move to AM5. So this is the new platform from AMD, and it's going to be on 5 nanometer. And here is a suggested leak of the lineup. What's interesting about this is we've got a complete exclusivity to DDR5. They're not going to support DDR4 on this, according to all the leaks so far. And that's interesting. It's just a clean break basically to say if you want to go onto this platform, you need to jump to DDR5. That from the testing we did with Intel, that's not a bad thing, and that will increase performance, but they are pricey, although they have dropped in price quite a lot, the DDR5 RAM modules. So that isn't a bad thing, and yeah, this is going to be good. The leaks are suggesting that maybe sometime in September was when we'll get an announcement / a release date. So that will be good. And again, the interesting stuff about this and why I potentially lean towards this rather than the Intel stuff, although we have to wait for performance, is that this platform potentially might be in use for another 5 years. We might get, in the same way that we have with AM4, it might do the same thing, where basically we are going to just be supported for a long time. That's the hope. There's no confirmation of that, but the hope is that AMD, they'll do this, and then these CPUs that get released now will be massively superseded by ones that they release in like 3 years time, but you can keep the same motherboard pretty much all the way through. So we'll see about that. What is again interesting is that I don't think these are going to come with the V-cache that the 5800 X3D has got initially. So I think they are going to have basically a separate lineup. So they'll have their normal non-3D chips, and then potentially they'll have some 3D chips that come hopefully probably by some point in next year, so 2023. It will be interesting to see, because the cache made such a massive difference with the 5800 X3D. Will just the general improvements that they've made with these 7000 series chips, will that take them past the 5800 X3D, or will we have to wait for the V-cache versions of those chips to really see a big boost in performance in Star Citizen? So that's interesting, but I would keep a good eye out on these chips, because I think this is probably more interesting to see how they perform than the Intel ones. But that's that. Then let's move on to some GPU news, and there's not much really so far that's come out about the 7000 series of GPUs for AMD. Maybe they're just a bit further out, but what they have got, and I'll put this quote up and read it for you, talking about power efficiency, because you may have seen that there's massive rumors about the Nvidia cards, and we'll come on to that in a minute, that they're going to use loads and loads more power than the current generation. So you're going to potentially having to go out and buy bigger power supplies, all that sort of stuff. So what have AMD said? And they're basically confirming that they should be more efficient than Nvidia, but they are heading in the same direction. So the quote from some vice president of something or other: the demand for gaming and compute performance is, if anything, just accelerating. And at the same time, the underlying process technology is slowing down pretty dramatically, and the improvement rate. So the power levels are just going to keep going up. Now we've got a multi-year roadmap of very significant efficiency improvements to offset that curve, but the trend is there. Performance is king, but even if our designs are more power efficient, that doesn't mean you don't have to push power levels up if the competition, Nvidia, is doing the same. It's just that they'll have to push them a lot higher than we will. So they don't know that's true, but that's their thinking. AMD think that they've got the efficiency crown, and we'll see when these GPUs come out. How will pricing be affected? Obviously, everything in the world costs loads more at the moment, and it will be really interesting to see how pricing for these cards and the Nvidia ones come out, because they're both pretty much competing on a level playing field in terms of performance. And so the hope is, it doesn't always work like this, and almost never works like this, but the hope is that we'll have some competitive pricing. But I just think the way the world has gone, and with pricing just for everything, that might be a bit optimistic. But anyway, interesting that they're going to have some good GPUs again, I think, from AMD this generation, which is really good to know. Not sure exactly when they'll come. Seems as though they're a little bit behind maybe the Nvidia ones, and actually I think the pattern has been for the last few generations that AMD will wait for Nvidia to release and then counter. So we'll see with that. But yes, very exciting stuff from AMD. They're doing well. It's good to see. Let's move on to the green team. Now, Nvidia GPUs, they've done really well over the last few years. They've been in a really dominant position, but AMD have come fighting back, and we've got an actual competition now, which is really good to see. We are going to see some interesting performance and power consumption from this generation of cards. All of the main leaks have been basically talking about the fact that Nvidia, in order to compete with AMD, are going to have to really push up the power requirements, and that seems to be what they're doing. Here's a leak of the 4090, 4080 and 4070, what we think is coming. And you'll see the stats here. The main ones to look out is the power supply, or the power draw that's predicted, and the cap of 450 watts on the 4090 is massive. Even on the 4080, there's potentially going to be a new power connector that some power supplies will come with, so we might have to be going out and buying different power supplies, and actually a lot of people, if you've got say like a 500 watt or even a 600 watt power supply, it's going to be close, so you might want to upgrade anyway. So that's going to be interesting. We might see real bumps in performance because, as we say, they have to actually compete with AMD, and AMD are really pushing the GPUs. So the 4090 potentially might be double the speed of the 3090. We'll see when they actually come out whether that will be the case. That's a 24 gigabyte card, DDR6X again. I think they already were, but the 4080 is the one that I'm interested in. I've got the 3080, and I'll be testing generationally against the 4080 if I can get my hands on one. But that's a 16 gigabyte card, which is a big increase over the 10 gigabytes of the 3080. Whether that's actually needed, in the testing I've done before, I don't think that the Star Citizen is getting anywhere near that. But we'll have to see. What I'm really interested about with this generation of cards is, are any of these cards, and again, I'm not going to go out and buy a 4090, but will the 4080 be a 4K Star Citizen card? Because we've found now that none of the cards that are on the market, even if you were to get the 3090 Ti or something crazy like that, they're just not 4K cards for Star Citizen. Star Citizen in its current state really does push things at 4K. So it'll be interesting to see how much of an improvement this generation is. And the same with the cards from AMD, and to see, can we get closer to a 4K 60 sort of experience? Because now we've got CPUs that can actually blow past 60 FPS in some areas, like the 5800 X3D. We really need some GPUs to kind of match them. So obviously that's only for people who are really at the top end and have got loads of money to blow, but it's going to be interesting. And again, I'm very excited to do some testing on the 4080, and hopefully, if money permits, we can get some of the AMD cards as well. So there we go, lots and lots of things. I'll just change the colour for the outro. There we go. I'm currently, I don't know if you can see the sweat dripping down my face. The UK is in the midst of what can only be described as unprecedented scenes. It's so hot here. It's like 30 degrees today, which really doesn't happen very often in the UK. And I've moved house as well, and I'm in a new set. I'm getting everything ready, so hopefully this will work and we'll get everything together. But that's enough of this one. If you like this sort of look, this is a bit of a different video, trying to kind of look forward and give you a bit of a picture of what's coming out in the next few months. But hopefully, if you like that, subscribe, and you can like this video as well. But that's enough of this one. I'll see you soon. Bye.